Welcome to this meeting of the HR Committee. I am Councillor Jill Cleary, Chairman of the committee. I will now hand over to Democratic Services to read the housekeeping note.
Please note this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please switch any mobile devices to silent, and if the fire alarm rings, please use the nearest fire exit and head for the assembly point in the car park. Thank you, Chairman.
For the benefit of those watching online, members are asked to introduce themselves if not already introduced by name. Andy, can I have apologies, please?
We have apologies from Councillors Cullen and Riley, Chairman.
Thank you. Can we do item 1? Members, can we approve the minutes of the meetings held on the 21st of March and the 13th of May, please?
Please.
Thank you. Item 2, do any members have any interest to declare? None? Thank you. Public participation. There is no public participation today. We are now on item 4, HR update. Helena, can you run us through this, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. So this is our regular report that we bring to you to give you an update on what we've been doing since we last met. So the learning management system is now up and running and it's live. We've also been able to get agency workers so that they can use the system as well. So that's really quite good because that means they can do sort of our mandatory health and safety working and things like that as well, and get them up to speed. We manage the site overall, and we will now be starting to look at other generic modules that we can bring on board. So they might not be mandatory for people's job roles, but it might be something that they have a healthy interest in, or something that they'd like to do, which might help them to progress perhaps to their next role here in the council. So really pleased with that. In terms of the recruitment update, we've done 2 assistant director roles, finance and housing, in the last quarter. I'm really pleased with that because we've done that internally this time round using our new candidate pack. So that's been really successful. We've been able to recruit to both of those roles. We've been to 5 recruitment events between January and May. And we also went to the Get Inspired event, which is a really popular event for 11 to 16-year-olds. And we had some members of Environmental Health came to support us with that, and they had their Sam and Ella display up, which I think went down really well. That was nice. We've changed our application form in April. You may remember in the past we had quite a clunky application form. So we've changed it so that people can submit a CV. We have had some learning from that because in doing that, we went from not having masses of applicants to having loads and loads of applicants. However, not all of them were particularly relevant or appropriate for the job role. So we've been able to put in place some other checks now so that we make sure that it's still really easy for people who are suitable to apply, putting in their CV, but hopefully it screens so that we only get the relevant people. So we'll keep an eye on that and make sure, track how that works in the future. In terms of graduate career opportunities, I think previously we've told you about the National Graduate Programme and also the Pathways to Planning Programme. We've done, I say we, actually Zoe has done a lot of work on that, and we've been to an event in London as well. We've done a video with all of our projects for people to have a look at. We've interviewed, have we interviewed them now? We have actually interviewed 4 graduates for the national programme, and hopefully by the end of June we will have an appointment to that, so really positive. And again, we will be interviewing candidates for the Pathways to Planning shortly. So again, really good. And then hopefully they will both start with us in the autumn. So it would be interesting to track their progress and see how they get on. Our customer service apprentice took part in the Local Government Apprentice of the Year competition, and she said she thoroughly enjoyed it, so it's nice to be seen at these events. Leadership development, that has now almost completed. It's completed in terms of the external facilitator. We've got one masterclass left, and actually that's taking place next Wednesday, and that's on procurement. And then that programme is finished. We have already put in place arrangements to run the next 2 cohorts, which will both start in September, and that will be a middle managers programme. We are still going to use the same external facilitator for that. It's still a 5-day programme, so there's like 2 blocks of 2 days and then a final follow-up day. And we are also going to run some more internal, I'm not going to call them masterclasses, but internal sessions for people, particularly in relation to HR procedures and policies, to make sure that all of our managers have a really good understanding of that. So we'll cover things such as recruitment, managing sickness and performance. The next couple of bits that are on the paper are things that we've put in place because of changes in legislation. So it's really just to make you aware that we have picked up those issues as they've arisen. So time off work for parents, support leave, and indeed flexible working. So actually now flexible working is a day one right. So as soon as somebody joins the council, they have the right to request it. That doesn't mean they have the right to have it, but it does mean that they can request it, and that needs to be given due consideration. The EDI group continue to meet quarterly, and we're thinking of ways in which we can improve our induction process as well to make sure that we are a very inclusive and welcoming authority to all of our prospective employees. And then leading on from that as well, the LGBT plus employee network. We've been attending some very early morning sessions down at the depots to run through these sessions with all of our staff. And we had a session here at Appletree Court in the Workplace Cafe one lunchtime. And it's just about encouraging people, anybody who's got an interest, to come along and find out a bit more, make some contacts, and just be making it comfortable for people. And lastly, not on the paper because it was too late to be on the paper, but I do have fabulous news. We have been awarded an Employer of the Year award at Brockenhurst College. So that means we will be going on the 11th of July. We were going there anyway because we are going to sponsor one of their gala awards called the Apprentice of the Year. And we sponsored that last year, and we're going to do that again this year. But now we've been informed that we've won Employer of the Year award. So we will be there in force to pick up our award, and we're very pleased. Thank you. That's me done.
Well, talk about finish on a high. Right, anyone got any questions for Helena? No, it was all fairly straightforward. Keith?
Thank you. Keith Craze, member for Barton and Beckton. Overall, very encouraging in every respect. I scribbled some notes, scribble being the operative word. On the LMS one, there were, I know, some initial gribbles about being able to access, but I guess that's all been dealt with now.
I believe that has all been dealt with. So I am just about to send out an email to members just to clarify where we are on that.
Fine.
And I have double checked that all of the information that's available in the councillors area of our ForestNet site, that it's all there and you can access all the right links and everything.
I used it yesterday after comments by others, and yeah, fine.
Excellent. Thank
It's like
you.
going back to school, really. Anyway, recruitment-wise, again, very good. You seem to be moving a little way towards the graduate recruitment scenario. Is that a fair comment, or it's as opportunity arises?
It's very much as opportunity arises. I mean, we are keen to encourage younger people to come and join the council. I think it's fair to say it's not necessarily a career that young people think about when they're at school. Yeah. I'm not sure that there's a great awareness of the whole range of careers that are available at the council. So part of the reason that we try to go to the schools and college events is to make sure that people understand that whole range that we can offer. I think it's been difficult in the past. We've had perhaps not a great image in terms of people really wanting to come and work for the local authority. And there is some work being done nationally. There is a recruitment campaign that's been run in the north of the country by the LGA that is moving down to the south. So we are actually going, or Zoe is actually going to go on a session in London again at the end of July to hear more about what that campaign, that national campaign may look like. And we'd certainly be keen to have a really good input in that. And if that means we can use additional things in terms of plugging our careers, then we'd be certainly happy to pick that up and use those.
Well, no, fine. I mean, my thought, having dealt with graduate recruitment years ago now, the thought to my mind was one of looking at, okay, Brockenhurst is obvious. I understand what you're saying about the younger people, which echoes something we were talking about earlier. But really, are you looking at moving further afield? And I'm thinking of, let's say, M4 South locations where people will be at colleges, etc., etc.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah. So in terms of the graduate programmes that we're recruiting to at the moment, they're national and we're recruiting nationally to those. So some of the people that are coming for interview may well just be finishing their degrees and they could be from anywhere in the country. So we're offering Teams interviews and they're looking to make a move. You know, they may have lived in Southampton, gone to uni in Manchester and they're looking for a job in Leicester, for example. Who knows? But we've got, for example, students from Exeter that have come for interview with us that we're looking to recruit.
Thinking likewise, because I'd written down Bristol, Bournemouth and Exeter, as well as Reading and Sussex, you know, as places to go to if you're thinking of any form of intake. And with the intake, you need to have a programme in place because the expectation levels, being arrogant, but the expectation levels are higher.
Yeah,
and they want this and that and everything else in place.
Yeah, I think that's why we're going into this national graduate programme to sort of try and perhaps expand the areas that we're looking at. So we're really hopeful that we will be able to get some graduates this year, and maybe that's the start of
it. Yeah.
Yes, bigger things.
No, it's, as I say, overall very good. I think that the work you've been doing, the leadership development, similarly, you know, it's something that needs to be and has been identified, is being worked on, and we'll have a series of as we go forward. That's key for developing internally.
Absolutely.
The key one there is identifying who should be or should not be on there. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Colin McCarthy from Pennington Ward. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on that presentation you just made there. It's great to see that you're actually being proactive within the community and you're actually targeting younger people to try and get them more involved within the council work that's actually been achieved, because there isn't very many young people within council work at the moment. So it's nice to see that you're actually targeting those individuals itself. You mentioned there about the depot and that you're up early mornings and you're visiting the depots. Do you mind me asking just what the uptake was on that, and have you got any numbers on that?
I don't have the numbers on that. What happened was Sophie from the HR team's been going to what's called their toolbox talks. So I can find those numbers for you if you're.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd be
Okay.
kind of interested to see what the uptake on that would be, and see how popular really that it is from the whole. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's move on to agenda item 5, quarterly health and safety report. James Laurie, corporate health and safety manager. Can you run through this, please?
Good morning, everyone. So this report highlights the significant work done by the health and safety team from the 1st of January to the 31st of March 24. So I'll just run through some of the highlights of the report. First one's on lone working. So the Apello lone working system is now live and is currently being used by a number of teams within housing. And the team are continuing to provide training to other teams across the council. Initial feedback has been really positive from employees, managers and our CCTV control room who are managing calls as well. In July, the council will be trialling 2 different higher risk lone working solutions. So this includes hardware on a similar to panic alarms. One is a watch-based device. Another is will go onto the back of an ID card and essentially has a button on there. So there's 2 different companies doing that, and that will be in early July. We'll be testing that with 12 different employees from across the council and all different teams. The warning marker register, we've currently just completed a trial on that, moving that to SharePoint. That was a very successful test, and again, employees very happy with that move, and that means it will be available on their work mobile devices, so it makes it a lot easier to use out and about. So the team are now looking to transition from our current system, which is a system called Verge, onto SharePoint, and we're working with our data protection team as well to update all of the data impact assessments, etc., and make that transition. And as part of that, I've also updated the policy, and that's been reviewed, and that has allowed us to add properties onto the warning marker register that have a specific hazard. Previously, it was only individuals that could be added, so now the council can add properties that have a significant hazard, and then once that hazard's been removed, then that property would be removed from the register as well.
I must say, James, I am really pleased with that one. Protecting our staff is very important. Thank you.
And just to move over to pesticides and herbicide store inspections. So the HC have visited a number of local authorities in Hampshire. We still haven't had any contact from them. I'm sure it will happen at some point, but it's still quite quiet from them. So in lieu of that, myself and Anthony Whittle from my team undertook an inspection at Claymeadow Depot on both our pest control store and the grounds maintenance store. So in the report, I've included all of our recommendations. We're very happy with it. They've done a really good job down there, and we believe it's extremely unlikely that we would have any enforcement action at all from the HC on the specific stores. However, Claymeadow Depot itself and other areas is potential for action from the HC just due to inappropriate storage of equipment and materials. This is due to space. So a number of these issues would be resolved with the construction of Hardley Depot. So obviously those guys are moving to Hardley where it's a bigger space. So it's something that the team down there continue to work on to make sure it's tidy and etc. In case of a potential visit from the HC. I've also updated our PPE policy. And again, this is in lieu of our changes to our corporate RPE policy. So we've just added in another section in relation to the use of RPE and the measures that are identified in the RPE policy as well. Our safety panels, I put on the report the changes that we've made to the actions and how they're recorded. So this is all based in Teams now. Again, that's had really good feedback from managers to make it a bit more easy to follow and reduces workload and paperwork as well. It's one of the key highlights I think you guys would be interested in is from the operational safety panel, which is in regards to workplace stress and anxiety. So at the panels we've had, due to the amount of new systems and as part of the transformation process, we're obviously looking at different online solutions So example is Bartec, iTrent, Eco Online Chemical Manager, Learning Management System, Apello, Loan Working, like we just said, and just general updates to Office 365. So I think staff are feeling a bit overwhelmed with a lot of the changes to technology, where those teams are not really technology focused and have that much experience in technology. So it was agreed that we can definitely help those teams and provide additional training, but we want to understand the best way to do that with operational staff. So we're going to look to do some further surveys and discussions with the workforce before coming up with a more detailed action plan going forward and how we can look to implement those systems. We do provide training on all of those systems, etc. But I think it's the way we deliver that training to those staff. In the office, in our corporate offices, I don't know if you've seen them, we've got EVAC chairs on every exit. They are going to be replaced by EVAC mats. A member of my team and all fire wardens have been completed Train the Trainer training, and we'll be providing training to all fire wardens in July 24. This will be at Appledore Court, so they will be placed here, and Lymington Town Hall, and we're offering that training to the MPA as well, and they're going to come down to Appledore Court and be part of that training with us.
James, are these the ones that you slide down, or you're talking about carrying people?
So it's at the moment we have chairs on the end of the stairwell, and they're not very. Basically, it's strapped into a chair and thrown down the stairs. Essentially, it's not a very nice experience. If you've been in one, I've been in one. It's quite scary if you make sure you're strapped in properly. So it's essentially changing it to like a sleeping bag, essentially, and you would put the person in a sleeping bag and slide them down. So it's a lot nicer experience than being thrown down on a chair, to be honest with you. And it also means there's no maintenance required. So we have to do yearly maintenance, which obviously comes at a cost with those EVAC chairs. The mats, we don't have to do that. So it's a win-win on my basis throughout. The accident reports, again, I'll just list some highlights from that. So this is an annual accident report for 23-24. We've had an increase in the total number of reports. So 23-24 was 315. The previous year was 298. We've had an increase in the total number of RIDDOR reports. The total number of days lost was 449. Again, this is an increase of 120 days, and 79% were reported within operational services. We've seen an increase of 166% in the total number of verbal abuse incidents reported. This is partly due to increased reporting within operational services through a push from my team. However, again, it's a common trend, I think, for most public-facing services and sectors throughout the country, as I'm sure you've seen on the news in things like Tesco's and things like that. We've also seen nearly double the amount of slip, trip and fall incidents in 23-24. Again, most of these are coming from waste services, and we believe this is partly associated with the extremely poor weather that we had this winter. Obviously, we've had lots of name storms and things like that, and potholes and things when they're collecting waste is what that could be associated with. We have seen a decrease in the total number of manual handling incidents reported, and this is something we focused on last year with a new policy, training, risk assessments, and general awareness from our team to those operational services. So that's definitely a positive outcome. And we've also seen a reduction in the number of contact with sharp incidents. Again, this is something we focused on with training and awareness, and we also worked with members of the public raising awareness to not place sharps within general waste. So that's obviously worked, and we've seen a really good reduction in that. We have had 3 RIDDORs, so I will quickly run through some of the detail of those. So the first one was in waste, and an operative was loading an 1,100 litre bin onto a bin lift, and the bin lift was not functioning properly. So after a number of times to get the lift to operate, the operative shoved the bin with his shoulder, which caused an injury. Obviously, the operative shouldn't have done this, and they should have called for assistance and contacted their supervisor. We have provided toolbox talks to all employees in relation to reminding them what to do in that situation, and they need to call assistance for that. And that incident resulted in 19 days lost. The second incident, again, was in waste. A refuse operative was collecting waste from Marriott Road, and while carrying out this task, was walking across a residential car park and was struck by a reversing car, knocking them to the floor. There was no witness to the incident. There was no CCTV available, and unfortunately, the injured person couldn't identify the car. It was, the injured person did say they probably didn't kind of notice or think it would have happened because it was quite a light touch, but did push them to the floor. Our refuse operative was wearing his full class high-vis clothing, and the supervisor did attend site and spoke to the injured person, and they confirmed that they were happy to continue their work. However, the following day, they called in sick. We've reviewed the risk assessments for the round, and again, there was no specific action identified. From our point, we were doing everything correctly, and that incident resulted in 27 days lost. And the final RIDDOR was from housing maintenance. A trade operative was carrying a single 600 by 600 radiator into the property from their van and felt a sharp twinge to their back, or the upper right side of their back. And again, this incident resulted in 14 days lost. Again, we've provided additional manual handling training to that employee with Toolbox Talk specifically on radiators and going over the risk assessment with the gas team as well. And I think that's it from me in terms of the high level stuff. So if there's any questions, happy to take those.
Thank you, James. Anyone got any questions for James? Keith?
Thank you, Chair. Not a question. Pleased to see recognition of the fact that there is some stress and anxiety around, particularly with bringing in the number of programmes that are being brought in, and not everybody is, and I'm talking about myself here, IT, whatever, but everybody will be thinking, oh, how do I do that? What is this? And the fact that you're actually looking now and taking it to simplify it so that people do understand what's going to happen, I think is very good. Equally, on the LMS scenario, you've got the opportunity there, as you rightly said, of using it for everything you possibly can, bearing in mind, don't overdo it in terms of programs and courses, because otherwise you do get befuddled upstairs. But overall, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Any other questions? No? Thank you, James. So let's go on to item 6, annual review of market supplement payments. Back to you, Helena.
Thank you. So it's a very factual paper in front of you. The reason for doing this is because even though in our current market supplement policy, we do say that these payments should be reviewed annually, it's not always easy to evidence that in the past. So what we've done now is we've introduced this annual review of the market supplement payment, so that even if there's been a change in the manager or something like that, they will still be made aware that they may have somebody or a team that are on a market supplement payment. They will be asked to review that every year to make a decision as to whether it's still relevant, whether it needs to be increased, decreased, or even perhaps removed. It's just to make sure that that conversation and that consideration is given to that payment. And we will keep a good record of that moving forward. So current position, we've got currently, or at the 1st of March anyway, 73 employees in receipt of a market supplement. 45 of those are under the market supplement that was given to the HGV drivers, and that was agreed by the relevant portfolio holder. And then 9 of them are relatively new, so they weren't part of the review this year, but they will certainly be in it next year when we get there. And the other 19 that are left have gone through that review process. So what we do when I say there's a review process, we run the report from the payroll system, we inform the manager of who the individuals are, the percentage of the market supplement that they're currently in receipt of. They have to complete the form to say whether they think it should continue or decrease, whatever. And then that form will go to the relevant strategic director for them to have an overall view of what's going on in their own service areas. So that's what we're introducing, really, just to make sure that all of our pay decisions are fair and consistent and regularly reviewed. So in the conclusion there, you can see how they are currently made up, the bands of the people that are on them, the gender and the age range. So it's all laid out there for you. We did have one comment when we took the paper to ESLP, which was about we had 7 female employees out of the 28 that aren't drivers. And they did make a comment because obviously that's quite a low percentage of females. But I did point out to them at the time, the majority of our market supplements are applied when we have a vacant post. And therefore, we don't know at that point in time what the gender of the candidates are going to be, or indeed of the employee that we end up taking on. But I think it's really important that we do have this annual review in place so that we can make sure that everything is done and it's all accounted for. That's it.
Anyone got any questions for Helena? Jeremy?
Thank you, Jeremy Heron, Portfolio Holder for Finance. With the market supplements, how long do you run those in terms of years before you think that you should reevaluate the job? But maybe it's not a market supplement, it's a change in the grading of that job.
I think that's a very fair point. And to be fair, we do tend to leave that to the manager to make that decision, because quite often, if you take things like a surveyor post, we are a little bit in the hands of the external market. So if there's a property boom and surveyors are needed in the private sector, then we need put something in place to retain them. And then, of course, if that property boom declines, there's not such a call externally, and then we're in a difficult position if we have then regraded a job, because you can't remove that, obviously. So we do rely on the managers making a judgment call, but I do think there is some scope for them to definitely consider, is that more now that the post, even if it's a number of people within a team, does it justify the post being regraded as opposed to having a market supplement awarded?
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Right. I've made a mistake. I haven't done any of the recommendations, so I'm whizzing through the agenda. Forgot that bit. Sorry. So, item 4, HR update. Recommendation to note on page 3. Agreed?
Noted.
Item 5, quarterly health and safety report. Recommendation on page 7. Agreed?
Agreed.
And item 6, annual review of market supplement payments. Recommendation to note on page 85. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right. I have no urgent items. I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone. Really good meeting.
Thank you.